Okay, we're back again with another video, and this time around I'm going to look at a bunch of the questions that I've been asked on a number of different forums, including here on YouTube and some of the English forums and Facebook groups that people who are looking to become English teachers subscribe to. So I'm gonna call this video, I'm going to dedicate this to the Worriers, those who have questions relating to teaching and they worry about whether they will find work due to their age, nationality, appearance, suitability, etc., so on and so forth. So there's a whole lot of questions here that I'm going to look at. So we'll just get busy on some of these right away and work through the list. This may continue into a part 2 of this video. Okay, question 1. Should I fix up a job before I leave home? Or should I wait till I get into Asia? And this one, you know, people sometimes say, oh, it's a no-brainer, but actually it's not. It depends a lot on where you want to go to, as to whether or not you line up a job ahead of time, or if you jump on an airplane and line up the job after the fact. If you're going to places like South Korea and China, you definitely need to line up your job ahead of time. The use of a recruiter is a necessary evil, and I'll address recruiters in another video here very soon, probably in the next few days or by the end of the week. But when you're looking at those countries, because you need to have the visa arranged ahead of time before you fly, you pretty much have to, and the visa has to be done in your home country quite often. So you have to, you know, work through a recruiter and line up your job ahead of time. And we'll go into some of the details for doing things like that when I talk in the recruiter video. For other countries in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Taiwan, Cambodia, Japan, a lot of other countries, then no, don't line up your job ahead of time. Employers can and will promise you the world in an email, and then you'll fly over and find out that things are not what you were expecting. And you'll find, for example, that nice house that they promised you is a 10 foot by 12 foot room with a toilet and a shower attached to your sink. And that's it, with a mat on the floor to sleep on. So you definitely want to come over and have a look before you sign on the dotted line, and then you'll do what's commonly referred to as a visa run to an adjacent country and get your work visa, and then settle your work permit after when you re-enter the country again. Things look very different when you're here as compared to sitting and reading an email from your living room back in Boise, Idaho, or, you know, Nashville, or someplace in Southern California. So you definitely want to, you know, fly over and have a look and scope things out, rather than try and pre-arrange a job ahead of time. Another thing, I received an email from a gentleman this morning, and they said, well, I was looking for a job in Thailand, and the advertisement said 35,000 baht per month. But when I applied for the job and they found out I'm sitting in the United States, all of a sudden I'm only being offered 28,000 per month. And my reply to him is, when you're kicking tires in the States, they're not going to offer you anything or take you seriously. You step off the airplane in Thailand with all of your documents in hand and ready, and all of a sudden you can find jobs crawling out of the woodwork at 40,000 per month, and it's not very difficult to find them. When you're here with your documents in hand, you're a very valuable commodity, and it's easy to find work. If you don't have your documents in hand, that's another matter, and work becomes very difficult to find. But if you've got everything ready ahead of time, you get off the plane, you should be working probably within a week or 10 days of your arrival in Southeast Asia. The exception being that if you arrive in the peak of the Northern Hemisphere's winter period, in Thailand, for example, December to January, it's really hard to find work because schools are winding down. Their school year ends in February, and then there's 2.5 months of where the schools are largely closed, and they don't need a teacher. So finding a job in December or January is really difficult. If you're here in April, the jobs are like picking cherries off a tree in harvest season. They're all over the place, and you cherry pick the best ones that look good to you. You go scope it out, and you start work middle of April or the 1st of May. Where can I observe some English lessons in progress? You probably can't unless you go looking at places on YouTube, people that have uploaded examples of their English lessons. Most schools are not going to let somebody who's not on staff into the school during a school period. If you're going to a language center, they may allow you to do some observations if they're considering hiring you, but just to walk in off the street and say, oh, I want to observe a couple of language lessons is not going to happen. Will you be able to pick up part-time work just to get experience? Yeah, there's lots of part-time work around. There's really something for everyone. And many schools and kindergartens are so desperate to get a native speaker into the classroom that they'll take just about anybody straight off the street who's got a degree and makes English noises. So it's not very difficult. It's not difficult at all to find extra part-time work. Why are there so many horrible teacher agencies out there? Well, that's because anybody can set up a teacher agency and provide teachers to schools. Many schools don't know where to turn when they look to hire foreign staff, so they contract with an agent who can promise them the world and will deliver somebody with a white face that makes English noises. They don't care, they're only in it for the money, and you're just a commodity to sell. And depending on the agency, sometimes they take a pretty big cut out of what you would otherwise get for an annual return. A regular recruiting agency will charge the school the equivalent of 1 month's salary to place you. Teacher agencies, on the other hand, will take anywhere between 15 and 30%. They'll get paid by the school, and then they will pay you. And the difference between those two could be as high as 30%. So you're usually better off to contract directly with the school. Is there such a thing as a teacher's blacklist? No. Well, yes and no. Officially, no. But schools will keep a list of teachers that they've gotten rid of, and sometimes, if a school is on your resume, the new school may phone the old school because quite often they'll know the directors or staff members over there, so they'll check and get an opinion of what that school thinks of you. If you've broken a contract and left the school in crap, they'll do their best to badmouth you, but by and large it doesn't mean anything. And a native English speaker in Asia has the ability to just pop across the border to the next country and get a job over there instead of where he is, so it's not really a big issue. You're not stuck in any one particular country. What's the ideal age to be a teacher? This is a difficult question to answer because different employers look for different things. Some of the top-end schools are looking for qualified teachers, so they'll take age and experience over basic, fresh graduates that are young and lively but haven't got a clue in a classroom. And a lot of other schools are looking for that new, young, fresh face to market to the parents in the neighborhood that, this is the new teacher for their English program. And they'll go for the young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, handsome-looking foreigner, somebody they can put on their brochures, and they're not really too worried about classroom quality, if you will. In between, it's a complete mixed bag. So there's teachers everywhere. The minimum age to be a teacher is 20, the full age of 20, with a minimum of a bachelor's degree. The official retirement age in most countries for purposes of getting a visa varies between 55 and 60. So if you're over 55, you'll probably start experiencing problems. A lot of those will be related as much to visa issues as it will be to ageism on the part of the employer. If you're under 20, you don't have a bachelor's degree, so let's face it, let's be truthfully honest, you're not going to find legitimate work. In between, there's something for everybody. I started in English teaching in Asia in my early 40s, and I'm pushing 60 now, still here, and doing reasonably well at it. How much money should I bring with me? It varies from person to person, but the best thing to say is bring as much as you can. Money is not a perishable item. It won't go bad if you don't spend it right away. But getting caught out short with no money in a foreign country is not a pleasant experience. And when you're getting set up in a foreign country, there are always expenses that you didn't expect. You're missing a document, you need to get something certified at the embassy, you need, there are those costs associated with doing the visa run to get your work visa or visa extension on for your tourist visa if you're still looking, and you run up against your, the end of your visa-free entry into the country. So there's always those unanticipated expenses that get in the way. So you should make sure that you have as much as you can possibly bring. I've known people that have flown in with as little as $300 in their pocket and they managed to get by. I've known people that have flown in with $2,000 or $3,000 in their pocket and they run short before the first paycheck comes in. So it depends a lot on your lifestyle. In Thailand, with expenses that you can expect, you should probably travel with between $2,000 and $3,000 if you can somehow come up with it, or a valid credit card to cover some of your overhead costs, so that you can pull on it until you can make the payments back and start getting a paycheck. If you're going to South Korea, you could probably get by with $500 to last you until your first payday. Remembering that first payday is not 2 weeks away from your arrival. If you're really lucky, it'll happen in about 30 days, assuming you find a job right away. It'll happen in the same calendar month. if you're unlucky a little bit even, it could be as long as 50 days from the time you first start work until you get your first paycheck. So you've got to have enough money for groceries and food and housing and anything else that comes along to get you through that first 50 days. And in Thailand, you could do that on the cheap, but it's not really pleasant. So bring as much money as you can. Should I be wary of a job post specifically asking for females only? No. It's actually really common, especially in Asia, especially for teachers of younger learners. Quite often you'll find in high school positions they're looking for the authoritative male figure. Traditionally that's what it was. And for the younger students, especially in kindergarten, nursery kindergarten and lower primary, it's almost exclusively female in those positions. So a job that's specifically looking for a female is not a big issue. It's pretty common. There's no ulterior motive. Which universities would hire or schools hire non-native speakers? It depends on the country you're going to. If you're going to Korea, they don't. Pretty much full stop. Unless you've got a PhD in applied linguistics. But for other English teaching positions, it doesn't happen. You've got to be a native English speaker. A native speaker is defined loosely as people who speak English as their first language and they have a passport from one of the 7 approved countries that include the United Kingdom, Ireland, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and in some countries, South Africa. Some countries require South Africans. They'll pay them like they would a native English speaker, but they'll require them to take an English proficiency test as part of the visa requirements, Thailand being one of them. Am I too old to teach at 65? Probably. But a caveat there is it's easy to get a retirement visa. If you're 65 years old and you've got a pension coming in, it's easy to get a retirement visa and then teach part-time, either at a government school, a private school, or a language center to supplement your income, to supplement your pension. And you don't have to work overly hard doing it to make a fairly decent income. Is it difficult to find a teaching job if I'm a fluent English speaker of Chinese descent? That will depend on your passport. If you're a fluent English speaker of Chinese descent and you have a Chinese passport, you're going to have difficulty, a lot of difficulty, outside of China. And within China, you have to meet the requirements to be a teacher of English in China. If you're a Chinese, of Chinese or Asian descent, and you hold an American, Canadian, British passport, then it's really not a big issue. You might have to look a little bit harder to find that first job, but after that, it's a non-issue. Despite sending my resume to dozens of employers, why am I not getting any replies? Because in most of Southeast Asia, in fact, just about everywhere outside of China, Korea, overseas applicants are not taken seriously. Everybody thinks the idea of jumping on an airplane, going to Asia, living the exotic lifestyle, and teaching English to pay your way through as you do that sounds like a really good idea. 90% of them never get on an airplane. They never bother making that jump across the Pacific Ocean to get here. So employers don't really take anybody seriously until they've either submitted all the documents to get a visa and they've begun the visa process, like in China, Korea, or they've actually got on the airplane and, you know, landed in Southeast Asia and they're looking for a job. As I mentioned earlier, if you're applying from your living room in, you know, someplace in Arizona or California, you're going to get offered maybe 28,000 baht in Thailand, for example. But you get it on an airplane and get over here, all of a sudden you're worth 40,000 baht because you're actually here and you have your documents in hand. So, you know, with the exceptions probably of China, Korea, buy the plane ticket, get on the plane, get over here. Chances of finding a job are about 100% for anybody who's got the right passport, a bachelor's degree, and a clean criminal record. No police record to be found. Chances of finding a job when you land here, 100%. The only thing is, if you show up in December, January, February, you may be hanging around for a couple of months until schools start up again in May. If you arrive here in April, you'll be working within a week of your arrival. April, May, June, or October, November. So that's pretty much it for the quick questions for the Worriers. And I'll close this off for now. And I'll come back later with part 2 of the Q&A and answering everybody's questions. Thank you.